For District Council 53 in Charleston, West Virginia, things were looking bright in September 2007. For more than a year, business manager Rick Hackney had been working closely with the Carpenters and other building trades unions on joint organizing campaigns. DC 53's organizing director Jerry Huffman reported back regularly on positive progress, especially with the Carpenters. On September 8th, Hackney was finally able to take his wife to Maine on a long-delayed vacation to celebrate their 35th wedding anniversary. He had no sooner gotten out of town when the phone calls started coming in to the District Council office.
District Council 53, this is Robin. May I help you?
There was approximately at least 75 to 80 members who had made the calls in. They were notifying the staff and myself that they had received calls from the Carpenters welcoming them to the Carpenters. That they would offer them and give them better representation and give insinuations that this council was not, and this brotherhood was not being ran properly.
Hi, this is Bill Halbert of the West Virginia Carpenters Union on Tuesday, September 11th.
The members were receiving a so-called robocall that made it sound as though top DC 53 leaders had already joined the Carpenters.
Ask yourself, why would Jerry Huffman of Charleston quit as organizing director and cross over to the West Virginia Carpenters? He's a second-generation member with 17 years in your brotherhood and 9 years on staff. Why would Gary Strope quit as a full-time organizer in North Central and cross over to the West Virginia Carpenters? He's a third-generation member and a finisher himself. And why did John Conley quit a while back as painter's business agent in Huntington? Why has John crossed over to the Carpenters? John's a third-generation member with 23 years in your brotherhood.
Servicing Representative Kenny Byrd had to take action since Hackney, on his way to Maine, couldn't be reached.
So I called him and left a message on his voicemail that what had Jerry and the others had crossed over to the Carpenters and what was going on. And I told him left a message that I was headed to the Union Hall to close all the computer passwords down and to get everything to where Jerry couldn't have access with the computer to get into our stuff.
Jerry Huffman, the trusted organizing director and second-generation Painters Union member who had worked so closely and so well with the Carpenters, had used his position and access to betray his union brothers and sisters.
And what he did was he went downstairs, got into the main office. He went through the files, collected all of our members' authorization cards, which has all their personal information on it. He also then turned around and went through the files and collected all of our 9A agreements that we already had, which were the originals, took them out of here. And he collected the financials from the apprenticeship program and from the district council. He went through, took trust documents of the various pension funds and our health and welfare, and even had the girls print out an activity report, put it on CDs, so that he explained to them that he needed that for the conversion of the 8Fs to 9As. But in reality, what he was doing with all this material was he was pumping it over and giving it to the Carpenters.
Rick Hackney and his wife had just arrived in Maine when he got the word.
I contacted General Vice President Bill Candelori, notified him what was taking place, and I also called the General President as soon as I got off the phone with the GVP, and Jim Williams told me that he would send Greg Rafferty in after I explained to him that I was in Portland, Maine, getting ready to start a vacation, but I would be heading back.
Now, together in Charleston, Rick Hackney and Greg Raftery developed a strategy. It appeared that the Carpenters were targeting DC 53's drywall finishers. But with membership records and union authorization cards gone, they couldn't take any chances, and the effort quickly became an organizing campaign.
It's an organizing campaign, even though there are members, because we were trying to convert the contractors from an 8F to a 9A agreement. 8F is a pre-hire, and 9A is recognition that gives the union total recognition. So they were in the process of an organizing campaign from 8F to 9A. And so what we had to do is go in with an organizing approach on our membership and our contractors and alliances. So it is an organizing campaign, even though it's our members. We're trying to protect our jurisdiction and our membership through an organizing style campaign.
It would have been very damaging to us if we'd have had to try to file for an election without having authorization cards. You have to have those cards in order to do that.
To reach out to a membership whose records were missing, DC 53 first had to find them. So they set up a situation room to locate members through employers and job sites, and then to keep track of who had been reached and where they stood.
But when you have this situation room or war room, whatever you want to call it, and everything's up on a wall, you can actually go and look at any particular company and see who you talked to, who you haven't talked to, who signed with the painters and who signed with the carpenters.
Also, it would enable us to identify which members would be able to participate in an election if an election was necessary. We had to go out and get new authorization cards signed, first of all, by all the drywall finishers, and I mean all of them. We also targeted anyone else that was on the job sites, painters, glazers that were working on those jobs.
In reaching out to its members, DC 53 discovered that the Carpenters had been spreading many lies.
The two biggest things they touted at the beginning was that District Council 53 had a $2.2 million training center in the north that we were training our guys to hang metal studs and hang drywall. They also stated that the general president of the painters had put out a video that they said that they had that clarified that the painters were going to take over the drywall hanging across this country. General President Williams told me that he offered $100,000 for that video, and I don't think he's had to pay that $100,000 yet.
We could tell how many people the Carpenters signed. And the Carpenters were saying they signed 30%. They didn't have 10 members sign over the period of the campaign. And out of those 10, I know 7 of them have already came back and they said that they were lied to. And that's why they signed.
Steve Fannin is one of those 7 members who left and came back. He had been told that a merger was in the works.
Well, I just kind of thought that all the guys were pulling together to go into Carpenters and having one union for the drywall. So that's pretty much what I thought. And I thought it was a good idea. It sounded good. I haven't had any work or any promise of any work since I'd done that. When I first realized, really it started coming to my mind, I've already resigned from the painters and I still don't have a carpenter's book. Now what am I going to do?
They were really angered by the fact that somebody had given out their cell phone numbers, had their social security numbers, had their information, and that anger really worked against the Carpenters.
Well, I'll tell you how I feel about identity theft. That's serious. You know, somebody taking your social security number and using it and don't have any say-so over it. That's not right. That's theft.
I will say that probably 99% of the members signed for that class action suit because they're angry and they wanted something to happen. They want somebody to be punished for stealing their names, their social security numbers, and because some of these people had cell phone numbers that belonged to their wives, just for in case of emergency. All of a sudden the wife's getting a call, robocall from a carpenter. That did not make them happy.
What happened at District Council 53 should serve as a cautionary tale. We averted a carpenter's raid in West Virginia, as we have in a number of places across the U.S. and Canada. But IUPAT members everywhere must be vigilant. For they will try it again, and they will use lies and deceit to achieve their ends. When it comes to organizing, that is all the Carpenters Union has to offer: lies and deceit.
I'm relieved, and I know that the painter's taking me back. You know, I made a bad mistake, and regretful of it. And it'll be the last time you hear from me doing something like that, you know.
They don't have the ability or the credibility to go out here and organize the non-union. They're incapable of being truthful. They cannot be honest with the workers. They can't even be honest with their own members. So there's no way that they have an opportunity to go out here and organize the unorganized the way they work. They have nothing to offer but lies and deception.